The Val-Ari ship arrived at station Horizon on a cold Tuesday morning. The whole station had been cleaned and decorated for the occasion. Flags of the human coalition hung beside the golden banners of the Valari Empire. Important. People stood in lines wearing their best clothes and their biggest smiles. Humanity had joined the Galactic Confederation only 50 years ago. In cosmic terms, they were babies. The older species looked at them the way adults look at noisy children. Primitive, emotional, short-lived. The Val-Ari were one of the oldest races, and they rarely gave humans any attention at all. So when Emperor Valen offered his own daughter as a bride to human representative, the whole galaxy took notice. It was seen as a great honor. Humans celebrated in the streets. News channels talked about nothing else for weeks. But behind the golden walls of the Valari Palace, Prince Kale was laughing. Princess Lyra stood in her small cabin on the ship, looking at herself in the mirror. She was tall and thin, with silver skin and large dark eyes that held no light. Her white hair fell past her shoulders like frozen water. She was beautiful by any standard, but beauty meant nothing when you were broken. She had been born with a defect. Her body could not produce children. In Valari society, a woman who could not bear heirs had no value. She was called the empty one by servants when they thought she could not hear. Her own father had not spoken to her in 3 years. Her brother Kale had convinced the emperor to send her away as a gift to the humans. A gift. That was the word they used, but Lyra knew the truth. She was garbage being thrown out in pretty wrapping. The humans would discover her condition soon enough. Then they would hate her too. They would feel tricked. They might even start a war over the insult. Perhaps that was what Kyle wanted. Perhaps he hoped the humans would kill her and save the family. The embarrassment. Lyra did not cry. She had stopped crying years ago. The ship doors opened and she walked out into the bright lights of station Horizon. Hundreds of humans stood watching. They clapped and cheered. Lyra kept her face empty and cold. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. Ambassador Thomas Reed stepped forward and bowed deeply. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He welcomed her with warm words that felt strange to her ears. No one had spoken to her warmly in a very long time. Then she saw him. He stood slightly behind the others. He was not wearing fancy clothes like the diplomats. He had simple dark pants and a plain blue shirt. His hair was messy brown, and he had a small scar above his left eye. He was not tall or handsome in the way Ari men were, but when their eyes met, he smiled at her. It was a real smile, not political, not practiced, just human. His name was Daniel Brooks. He was 32 years old, a former military medic who now worked at the station's medical center. When the coalition had asked for volunteers to be the princess's partner, no politician had wanted the job. They feared it was a trap. They worried about cultural mistakes. They made excuses. Daniel had simply raised his hand. The welcome ceremony was long and boring. Lyra stood still and said the right words at the right times. Finally, they were alone in her new quarters. Daniel had been assigned as her official partner. They would share this space. He looked around the room and scratched his head. They really went all out with the decorations. I hope you like purple. I think the design team got a bit excited. Lyra did not respond. She stood near the window looking out at the stars. "Are you hungry?" Daniel asked. "The food at the main hall is pretty formal, but there's a small place on deck 7 that makes amazing noodles. Well, amazing by station standards, which means acceptable by normal standards. Still." She said nothing. Daniel sat down on a chair and waited. He did not push. He did not demand. He just sat there, comfortable with the silence. Finally, Lyra turned to face him. "It was time to end this performance. You should know something," she said. Her voice was flat and cold. "I am defective. My body cannot produce children. I am sterile. The Valari sent me to you as an insult. You have been given damaged goods." She watched his face, waiting for the anger, the disgust, the betrayal. Daniel blinked. He tilted his head slightly, thinking. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said. "Are you hungry? Because I really wasn't joking about those noodles." Lyra stared at him. This made no sense. "Did you hear what I said?" "Yeah, I heard you." Daniel stood up and stretched. "You can't have kids. That must have been hard for you, especially with how your people treat that kind of thing. I'm sorry you went through that." "You are not angry." "Why would I be angry at you?" He seemed genuinely confused. "You didn't choose this, and honestly I didn't sign up for this because I wanted something from you. I signed up because it seemed like you might need a friend." Lyra felt something crack inside her chest, a wall she had built long ago. She did not know what to do with this feeling, so she pushed it down. "I do not need your pity," she said. "Good. Because I'm not offering pity." Daniel walked toward the door. "I'm offering noodles." Coming. He did not wait for her answer. He just walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Lyra stood alone in the purple room, surrounded by decorations meant to honor a gift nobody wanted. She thought about her brother laughing. She thought about her father's silence. She thought about years of being called empty and broken and worthless. Then she thought about noodles. She followed him out the door. 3 weeks passed on Station Horizon. Lyra waited every day for Daniel to change. She waited for him to grow cold, to become cruel, to reveal his true face. Behind the mask of kindness, everyone had a true face. She had learned this lesson well, but Daniel never changed. He woke up early every morning and made something called coffee. He always made 2 cups, even though Lyra told him she did not drink it. He left her cup on the table anyway, just in case, he said. He asked her questions, not important questions about politics or alliances. Strange questions. What colors did she like? Had she ever seen snow? What kind of music did they play on Valari? At first, Lyra gave short answers, 1 word, sometimes no words at all, but Daniel did not seem to mind. He talked enough for both of them. He told her about his childhood on Earth, about his mother who taught him to cook, about the dog he had as a boy, named Captain, who was afraid of thunder. Lyra found herself listening. She did not mean to care about these stories, but she did. One evening, Daniel brought home a small device. He set it on the table and pressed a button. Music filled the room. It was soft and slow, with a woman singing words Lyra did not understand. "It's called jazz," Daniel explained. "My grandmother loved it. I thought you might like to hear something from Earth." Lyra listened. The music was strange. It did not follow the rigid patterns of Valari compositions. It wandered and flowed like water finding its own path. It was messy, imperfect, Beautiful. Why do you do this? Lyra asked suddenly. Daniel looked up from the book he was reading. Do what? This, she gestured. Around the room, the coffee, the music. The questions about my favorite color. Why do you try so hard? He put down his book. His face became serious but not angry. Because you're a person, Lyra. And people deserve kindness. I have no value to you. I cannot give you children. I cannot give you political power. My family has thrown me away. What do you gain from treating me well? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. I don't need to gain anything. That's not how this works. At least that's not how I want it to work. Lyra did not understand. In Valari society, everything was a transaction. You gave something to get something. Power for loyalty, children for status. Nothing was free, nothing was without calculation. I was told humans are primitive, Lyra said, emotional and foolish. Daniel laughed. Yeah, we probably are, but I'd rather be foolish and kind than smart and cruel. Something shifted in Lyra. That night, she did not have a name for it yet, but the wall inside her cracked a little more. Days turned into weeks. Lyra began to talk more. She told Daniel about Valari customs, about the strict rules in the cold palaces, about how children were tested at birth and those found lacking were marked forever. One night she told him about the naming ceremony. When a Valari child turned 5, they received their true name in front of the whole court. But Lyra's ceremony had been different. Her father had looked at her with empty eyes and said, this one will bring no honor. Let her name be forgotten. She had been called Princess Lyra in public, but in private she had no name. She was just the empty one. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, his hands were shaking. I'm sorry, Lyra said. I should not have. No, his voice was tight. I'm glad you told me. I'm not shaking because I'm sad. I'm shaking because I'm angry. Lyra blinked, angry at me, at them. Daniel stood up and paced the room. At your father, at your brother, at everyone who made you feel like you were nothing. You were a child, Lyra, a child, and they treated you like broken equipment. No one had ever been angry on her behalf before. No one had ever cared enough. It does not matter now, Lyra said quietly. It is the past. It matters. Daniel stopped pacing and looked at her. His eyes were fierce. It matters because it still hurts you. I can see it. Every time someone gives you a compliment, you flinch. Every time I'm nice to you, you wait for the trick. That's not normal, Lyra. That's what happens when people break you down for years. Tears burned in Lyra's eyes. She fought them back. She had not cried in so long. I do not know how to be anything else, she whispered. Daniel walked over and sat beside her. He did not touch her. He just sat close enough that she could feel his warmth. Then we'll figure it out together, he said. No rush, no pressure, just together. The tears fell. Lyra could not stop them. She cried for the first time in years, and Daniel sat with her through all of it. He did not try to fix her. He did not offer empty words. He just stayed. When the tears finally stopped, Lyra felt lighter, empty in a different way. Clean kind of empty. The noodles on deck. 7, she said quietly. Daniel looked at her. What about them? I think I would like to try them again. He smiled. It was that same real smile from the first day, unpracticed, unplanned, just human. Yeah, he said, I think I'd like that. 2, they walked to deck 7 together, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt something she had never felt Before she felt safe, Dr. Emma Hayes had been studying alien biology for 15 years. She had seen things that most humans could never imagine, but she had never seen anything quite like Princess Lyra. Emma worked in the medical center on Station Horizon. When she heard about the Valari princess, she became curious. Not about the politics or the marriage. She was curious about the science. Valari medicine was supposed to be advanced. So why would they declare someone permanently sterile without trying to help? She approached Lyra one afternoon in the station garden. Lyra was sitting alone on a bench watching a small fountain. Daniel was at work and she had started taking walks by herself, small steps. Growing confidence, Your Highness, Emma said, bowing her head slightly. May I sit? Lyra looked at her with cautious eyes. You may. Emma sat down and introduced herself. She explained her work and her questions. Then she asked something that surprised Lyra. Would you let me study your condition? Not to fix you, I know that's a sensitive topic, just to understand. Valari biology is so different from ours, and I think we might see things your doctors missed. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. My doctors did not miss anything. They simply did not care to look. Broken tool is not worth repairing when you can throw it away. Emma felt a flash of anger at those words, but she kept her voice calm. Humans don't think that way. Every life matters to us. Every problem is worth solving. Even for someone like me, especially for someone like you. Lyra agreed to the tests. She did not expect anything. She had been examined by Valari doctors many times. They always said the same thing: defective, unfixable, worthless. But Emma Hayes was not a Valari doctor. She ran tests for 3 weeks, blood samples, genetic scans, hormone analysis. She stayed up late every night comparing Lyra's results to everything humans knew about Valari biology, and slowly a picture began to form. Emma called Daniel and Lyra to her office on a Thursday evening. Her eyes were bright with excitement, but she kept her voice steady. I found something, she said. Lyra, you're not sterile. Not truly. Lyra stared at her. That is impossible. I was tested. You were tested by people who had already decided you were broken. Emma interrupted gently. They saw a hormonal deficiency and stopped looking. They assumed it was permanent because that's what their textbook said. But Lyra, the deficiency isn't permanent. It's dormant. Daniel leaned forward. What does that mean? Emma pulled up a display showing complex biological data. Valari is advanced in many ways, but they have a blind spot. They don't invest in treating conditions that affect low-value individuals. Lyra's condition is rare, but it's not untreatable. Her reproductive system is just sleeping. It never activated because her body lacks certain hormones. Can you wake it up? Daniel asked. Emma nodded slowly. I think so. We have gene therapy techniques that the Valari never developed. Combined with hormone treatment, we might be able to activate her system for the first time. But I have to be honest, this has never been done before. There are risks. The room fell silent. Lyra felt dizzy. For her whole life she had been told she was broken beyond repair. She had built her entire identity around that single fact, and now this human woman was telling her it might be wrong. I need time, Lyra said quietly, to think. That night she sat by the window in their quarters, staring at the stars. Daniel sat nearby, giving her space but staying close. What if it doesn't work? Lyra finally said. What if I let myself hope and it fails? Daniel thought about this carefully before answering. Then we'll be sad for a while. And then we'll figure out what comes next together. And if I choose not to try, if I'm too afraid, then that's okay too. Daniel moved closer and took her hand. Lyra, this isn't about giving me a child. This is about giving you a choice. You've never had choices before. Whatever you decide, I'm here. Lyra looked at their hands together, silver and brown too. Different worlds, but somehow it felt right. I want to try, she whispered. I'm scared, but I want to try. The treatment began the next week. It was difficult. The gene therapy made Lyra sick for days. The hormone injections caused mood swings that left her crying one moment and laughing the next. There were moments when she wanted to give up, but Daniel was there. Every injection, every difficult night, he held her hand and told her stupid jokes and made sure she ate even when she had no appetite. Weeks passed, then months. Emma ran test after test, tracking every small change in Lyra's body, and then one morning Emma burst into their quarters with tears streaming down her face. It worked, she said. Lyra, it worked. Your system is fully active. You're not sterile anymore. Lyra could not speak. She could not breathe. The word echoed in her mind over and over. Not sterile, not broken, not empty. She fell into Daniel's arms and cried, but these were different tears. These were tears of joy. 3 weeks later, Lyra discovered she was pregnant. She stood in the medical center staring at the scan that showed a tiny heartbeat, a life growing inside her, something she had been told was impossible. Daniel stood beside her, crying openly, not ashamed of his tears. The empty one, Lyra said softly, touching the screen. That's what they called me. She looked at Daniel with eyes full of light. They were wrong. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The sterile Valari princess was pregnant. The broken gift that the Empire had thrown away was carrying a child. It was impossible. It was a miracle. It was an insult to everything the Valari believed. On the throne world of Valaris Prime, Emperor Valen read the reports with cold fury. His advisors stood in silence, afraid to speak. Prince Kale paced the room like a trapped animal. This is a lie, Kyle said. The humans are trying to embarrass us. She cannot bear children. Every doctor confirmed it, and yet Emperor Valen said quietly, here we are. He stood and walked to the window that overlooked his golden city. He had thrown his daughter away like trash. He had given her to primitives as a joke. And now she had done the one thing everyone said she could never do. If this was true, it meant Valari medicine had failed. It meant the Empire had discarded a princess who was not actually broken. It meant humans had succeeded where Valari had not even tried. The shame would be unbearable. We must demand her return, Kyle said. For verification, we need to prove this is a trick. Valen nodded slowly. Send the message. Princess Lyra will come home. The summons arrived at station Horizon 3 days later. It was written in formal language, but the meaning was clear. The Emperor demanded his daughter return to Valaris Prime immediately. Ambassador Thomas Reed brought the message to Daniel and Lyra personally. His face was troubled. You don't have to go, he said. You're under human protection now. They can't force you Lyra was 6 months pregnant, her silver skin had a new glow, and she moved with a confidence she had never felt before. She read the summons twice, then sat it down. "I want to go," she said. Daniel looked at her with concern. "Lyra, these people hurt you for years. Why would you want to face them?" "Because I am not the same person they threw away." Lyra touched her belly gently. "I want them to see what I have become. I want my father to know that his broken gift built a life without him." Daniel was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. "Okay, but I'm coming with you, of course." "You are," Lyra smiled back. "I would not have it any other way." The human delegation traveled to Valaris Prime in a coalition ship. Ambassador Reed came along with a team of diplomats and a small unit of soldiers, not for war, just for protection, just in case. Lyra stood at the front of the group as they entered the great hall of the Imperial Palace. Hundreds of Valeri nobles lined the walls, watching in silence. They had come to see the impossible princess. She walked slowly, her head held high, her pregnant belly visible for all to see. Daniel walked beside her, his hand in hers. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy. He did not belong in this golden room full of ancient power, but he did not look afraid. He looked proud. Emperor Valen sat on his throne at the end of the hall. His face was stoned. Prince Kale stood beside him, barely controlling his rage. Lyra stopped 10 ft from the throne. She did not bow. She did not kneel. She simply stood and waited. "Daughter," Valen said, "you have returned." "I have," Lyra replied, "though I am not certain I should still be called daughter. Fathers do not usually throw their children away." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "No one spoke to the emperor this way. No one." Kale stepped forward. "Watch your tongue. You stand before I stand before the man who called me worthless." Lyra interrupted. "I stand before the brother who laughed when I was sent away. I know exactly where I stand." Valen raised his hand, silencing Kale. His eyes never left Lyra. "The child," he said, "it is truly yours." "It is," Valari doctors said. "You could never conceive." "Valari doctors never tried to help me." Lyra's voice was steady. "They examined me, declared me broken, and moved on. Human doctors did not give up so easily. They found a solution that your empire was too proud to seek." More murmurs. This time louder. Valen stood slowly. "The child carries royal blood. It belongs to the empire. You will stay here and raise it properly." "No." The single word echoed in the silent hall. Even Daniel looked surprised by how firmly she said it. Lyra stepped forward. "You threw me away, father. You called me worthless. For 20 years I lived in your shadow, begging for scraps of attention that never came. And when you finally noticed me, it was only to use me as an insult to people you considered beneath you." She gestured to Daniel. "These people you mocked, they saved me. They saw value in me when you saw garbage. They healed me when your doctors would not even try. You are Val." Ari, Valen said coldly. "Your duty is to your people." "My people," Lyra laughed bitterly. "My people called me the empty one. My people celebrated when I was sent away. My people are not here in this golden hall. My people are on a small space station, eating noodles and listening to jazz music." She took Daniel's hand again. "My child will be raised by people who love her, not by people who measure worth by what you can produce. I am done being your property." Kale moved forward, his face twisted. With anger, he raised his hand to signal. The guards arrest the human. He has stolen property of the Empire. 4 Ari guards stepped toward Daniel. But before they could reach him, 8 human soldiers moved forward there. Hands on their weapons, the hall fell. Deathly quiet, Ambassador Reed stepped. Beside Lyra, his voice was calm but firm. Princess Lyra is a citizen of the human coalition now by her own choice. Any action against her or her family will be considered an act of war. He paused, letting the words sink in. Valari Empire is powerful, but humanity protects its own. We do not care about politics or pride. We care about people. And Lyra chose to become one of us. Standoff lasted for 10 heartbeats. 20. 30. Finally, Emperor Valen raised his hand. The guard stepped back. Go, he said to Lyra. His voice was empty. You are no longer welcome here. Lyra looked at her father one last time. She saw an old man surrounded by gold sitting alone on a cold throne. I was never welcome here, she said softly. Goodbye, father. She turned and walked out of the great hall. Daniel walked beside her. The human delegation followed. Behind them, the golden doors closed. With a heavy sound, Lyra did not look back. The baby came on a quiet night in early spring. Station Horizon had no seasons, of course. Space stations, orbiting gas giants, did not have spring or autumn or winter, but the humans had created an artificial garden on Deck 12 with trees that bloomed in cycles. And on the night when Lyra went into labor, the cherry blossoms were falling like pink snow. Daniel held her hand through 18 hours of pain and fear and hope. Dr. Bip Emma Hayes led the medical team. Her face calm and focused, nurses moved around the room with quiet efficiency. And when the first cry filled the air, everyone stopped breathing for just one moment. It was a girl. She was small and perfect. Her skin was pale silver like her mother, but her eyes, when she opened them, were brown like her father's. She had tiny fingers that grabbed at the air, reaching for something only she could see. Daniel cut the cord with shaking hands. Emma wrapped the baby in soft white cloth and placed her in Lyra's arms. Lyra looked down at her daughter. Tears fell from her eyes onto the baby's silver cheeks. The child did not cry. She simply stared up at her mother with those strained brown eyes, as if she already understood everything. Hello, Lyra whispered. I'm your mother. I waited so long to meet you. Daniel leaned over them both, his own tears falling freely. He did not try to hide them. He had learned long ago that tears were nothing to be ashamed of. What should we name her? He asked. Lyra thought for a long moment. She thought about her life, about the years of darkness, about the cold palace and the cruel words and the endless feeling of worthlessness. And then she thought about the light, about Daniel's smile, about Emma's determination, about the small space station where strangers had become family. Hope, she said. Her name is Hope. Daniel smiled through his tears. Hope Brooks. I like it. Hope made a small sound, almost like agreement, and Lyra laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. News of the birth spread quickly. The first hybrid child of human and Valari, a miracle born from what others had called impossible. Scientists wanted to study her. Politicians wanted to use her. The whole galaxy seemed to have an opinion, but on Station Horizon, Hope was just a baby. She cried when she was hungry. She slept in her father's arms. She made faces at the colorful toys Emma had given her. She was ordinary in all the ways that mattered, and yet she changed everything. In the months after Hope's birth, something strange began to happen. Valari citizens started reaching out to human medical centers in secret, mothers with children who had been declared defective. Young people told they would never be whole. They had heard the story of Princess Lyra, and they wanted to know if humans could help them too. Dr. Emma Hayes worked with a growing team to study RE conditions that the Empire had ignored for centuries. They found treatments for diseases that Valari doctors had given up on. They helped people who had been told they were worthless. Word spread. More Vari came. Then other species, people from all over the galaxy seeking the human doctors who did not give up, who believed every life was worth saving. The rigid system of the Valori Empire began to crack. Citizens questioned why their own doctors had refused to help. They demanded changes. They protested. Some were punished, but the questions did not stop. Emperor Valen watched his empire shake and said nothing. Prince Kale grew more angry with each passing day, but there was nothing they could do. They had thrown away a princess, and she had become a symbol that could not be silenced. Lyra did not seek revenge. She did not try to destroy her family or bring down the empire. Instead, she built something new. She became an ambassador working between human and Valari worlds. She spoke to crowds about hope and healing. She told her story again and again, not to gain sympathy, but to show others what was possible. 1 year after Hope's birth, Lyra received a letter. It was from a young Valari girl named Mira, who had been born with the same condition as Lyra. She had been called worthless her whole life. She had almost given up, but she had heard Lyra's story, and she had traveled to a human station for treatment. The treatment had worked. Mira was healthy now. She was going to school. She had friends. She had hope. At the bottom of the letter, written in shaky handwriting, were 3 words: "Thank you, Princess." Lyra read the letter 100 times. She kept it in a box beside her bed, along with other letters from other people she had never met, people whose lives had changed because she had refused to stay. Broken on the night of Hope's first birthday, Lyra stood on the observation deck of Station Horizon. The stars stretched out before her, endless and beautiful. Hope slept in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, dreaming baby dreams. Daniel walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around them both. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Lyra smiled. "I'm thinking about my brother, about how he laughed when he sent me away. He thought it was a joke. He thought he was destroying me, and instead he gave me everything." She turned to look at Daniel. "He gave me you. He gave me hope. He gave me a whole new life." Daniel kissed her forehead. The joke was on him. The joke was on all of them. Lyra looked back at the stars. They saw weakness. They saw something to throw away, but humans saw something else. You saw a person worth saving. Hope stirred in her arms, making soft baby sounds. Lyra held her closer. "I used to have nightmares," she said quietly, "about being empty, about being nothing. But now when I close my eyes, I see her face. I see your face. I see the future we're building together." Daniel tightened his arms around her. "You're not empty, Lyra. You never were." They were just too blind to see what was inside you. They stood together in the starlight, a family made from broken pieces, a princess who had been thrown away, a medic who had simply raised his hand, a child named Hope sleeping peacefully. Between them, far across the galaxy, the Valari Empire continued to shake. Old systems were falling, new ideas were rising, and it had all started with one simple truth that humans had always known: every life has value, every person matters, and sometimes the people others throw away become the ones who change everything. Lyra watched the stars and smiled. They had given her to the humans as a trick. She had returned as a mother, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.